I assume you're all here because you want to either start marketing to schools or rethink and improve what you do already. And the idea of this session is to help you to do that. When we talk about marketing to schools, obviously we think about librarians, but more often than not, we're talking to school leaders, to teachers, to business managers, anyone who's making decisions over what is purchased. And often we, as an agency, which I'll touch on in a moment, we also market to parents and to kids themselves, if you think about revision guides and things like that. Essentially, there's a whole wide range of things that can be done to get more books into more hands. So introduce myself, and then I'll introduce our panellists here. So my name is Laura Summers. I run BookMachine Creative Agency. So we do marketing, we also build digital products and also deliver creative projects. So whether that's video, assets, brochures, anything that sits under digital marketing creative for education publishers. Our team are based in the UK, but we work with publishers globally, and our clients include DK Learning, Oxford University Press, Cambridge University Press, Collins, Hodder Education, and a range of edtech businesses. So we've got a really wide range of experience. On the panel today, we have Hilary Fine, recently promoted to Managing Director at DK Learning. DK Learning launched in 2021 as part of DK, and they have a wide range of resources aimed at both teachers and schools. And Hilary has 25 years of experience both in education publishing and also in edtech as well. And on my left, we have Eduardo Rodrigues, who is Head of Business Development at Saber, which is part of the largest educational publisher in Brazil. And he's also president of the Latin American Educational Publishers Forum. So lots going on there. Apologies from Mariam Allo-Beedley from a Calamat Group, who's unable to be here today. So there are two reasons why I chose this particular topic to focus on for this session. One is it's really important. As publishers, you have great resources, and getting those books into the hands of young people is a really important role of publisher, whether this is something new for you or whether you do this already. And second of all, it's very difficult to do. Schools are complex environments, whether that's from a budgeting perspective and understanding how the budgets work, whether it's understanding the timing and at which point you're going to be running your campaigns, or even just generally thinking about the process of how books and resources get into schools. Schools want the right solution. They're not going to take a risk. They want to get it right. So there's a lot of value behind that positioning and really thinking about building that trust within the schools market. And the other reason it's difficult is because it's very competitive, as you will probably know. So I'm going to start my first question with Hilary. I'll ask each question to both of our panellists, and then hopefully we'll have some time for some questions from the audience afterwards. So Hilary, hi.
Hello.
When you're communicating to schools, who specifically are you talking to, and what do you think their top priorities are?
So I think when we talk to schools, we have to talk at all the levels in the school. So we have to talk at the teacher, who's often the user, but then the decision maker isn't often the teacher. So we have to have different messages to different parts of the school. And the budget holder is often not the person who will use the material. I think the teachers' main priorities are around engagement, making sure that the children will enjoy or will learn from whatever materials they're going to select. They'll work in their classroom, that they're relevant, contemporary, things like that. Whereas for the person in charge of the budget, they're looking often for something that's going to be value for money, that suits their overall objectives. Particularly in school groups, we increasingly see them wanting to put the same material in every year 3 class across a school group, things like that. So they'll be looking for things like, will it work in a range of schools rather than will it work in my school and in my class? So we try to communicate with both those levels. And sometimes, depending on where we are in the world, because we operate globally, so in a country like the United States, there's a district level as well. So there's a level above the school lead that may also be a key decision maker in the process.
Amazing. Thank you. Same question over here.
Well, Laura, first of all, let me thank you for the kind invitation to be part of this panel together with Hilary. It's a pleasure to share a little bit of our experience in Saber on the Brazilian market. First of all, just a quick remark regarding the Brazilian market. We need to divide it on two different markets, the private schools and for public schools. That they operate on completely different manners. And just some figures, the public market, the public schools represents 80% of the total enrollment of students. That's around 40 million students, and the other 20% are enrolled on private schools. Despite this huge difference on size, when we measure the market on by revenue, they actually have quite the same size. Actually, the private market has a small advantage, actually. So back to your question, when we market to public schools, actually, teachers in Brazil are the main stakeholder. This is something specific on how the Brazilian federal program runs, but the decision on the educational book, it's decided on each school collectively by each teacher from each subject. So when we are marketing to them, we are talking about, as Hilary presented, exactly, my points were exactly what Hilary pointed out. They want to see how this book engages students. It's interesting, makes learning interesting. They want to see how the books are connected to the local curriculum, how the books make it easier for teachers to teach. Well, when we go to private schools, it's completely different. Of course, teachers is an important stakeholder, but the decision maker is not teachers or the director of the school or even the school's owner. And here we are not talking about only books. It's more like the whole educational ecosystems among the school. It's not, well, which math book is more interesting? It's, okay, I need technology, teacher training, and so on. So schools, the private schools are seeking for a partner that can address on a more holistic approach of their educational resources need.
Mm-hmm. It's really interesting. I wonder how similar that is in sort of many markets where it's not, it's not simply about a product, it's like the whole system, how that works. Could you please talk us through how your marketing develops throughout the year? So what does that look like in terms of terms and at what time you approach things and things like that?
Sure. Well, our academical year begins in January, and usually the selection of educational books goes on August, September. And this is probably the only similarity on the public and the private markets. They run by the same calendar. Usually, we start our marketing campaign on April or May. Usually not. I'm going to talk more specifically about the public markets where I operate. We begin our campaign around April and May. Not talking about the books itself, we talk about the publishing house, advertise our digital platforms. We have a lot of educational resources. Like we want the teachers to be connected to us on their daily activities through our platform. So we spend a lot of energy and money as well. On advertising our platform, getting teachers to register on it, so we have their mail, that we have their information that we can later on better advertise our materials. Then we properly go to start talking about our books. Brazil, it's the main strategy. On this first wave, let's on a matter speak, of course, digital is important, but we use a lot of in-person meetings, relations with teachers. We want to use this presential moment to get them to continue this relationship through a platform. On the second wave, we start distributing printed samples of the books around the schools. In Brazil, we have around 180,000 schools. And then we start, okay, why my book is interesting for you, or maybe interesting for your school. We use our authors, videos, all of our marketing strategies to promote our books, especially when we talk about the public market. As I mentioned, we have little space to differentiate. On the private market, we can be more innovative with different solutions. On the public market, it's book against books. So why my math book is better than yours for your school. And after the selection of the books, we begin the let's say the post-sale relationship. That honestly, it's been the hardest for years. The hardest part, I believe, on well, this is a Brazilian. I would love to hear from different experiences. All teachers complain that, well, publishers come here every 4 years. It's when they have to choose their books. And after we choose, you give up of us. Yeah. So we continuously are being pushed to be more present with schools. Mm-hmm. And so we are putting a lot of resources for our digital platform that we can try to have on a scale. It's 180,000 schools, 40 million students on the public market. Like, it's impossible to have a local presence. So we are trying to make this continuous relations on through the whole 4-year period. But that's the hardest part, and I believe all publishers in Brazil are still struggling to make this effort actually more strong, and that they can collect the benefits later on.
Yeah, it makes sense, really, doesn't it? That all of that effort goes up to that point, and then whereas that's the bit where you're sort of. I'm interested in what you said about the author as well. So, how big a role does the author play in the marketing?
Well, this is quite interesting. I have our editor-director here. Okay. We have excellent authors that write excellent books, but are terrible on cameras. Yeah. And we need to, okay, let's just take a picture and we manage the rest. So we are getting back to teachers, and there are some authors, okay, they're terrible in front of a camera, but if you give him a classroom, well, okay, I won't have a huge scale, but whoever assists is part of the audience will, okay, I want his book because he's spectacular. So far, we've been working on some short videos and some lives that is not specific about their books, not to promote their books, but so they can be seen as an educator to discuss relevant topics on education, not only to promote their books. So to try to separate, to use their teachers, recognize their authority. By, okay, it makes sense what he speaks. Oh, and he has a book. That's even better.
Amazing. Thank you. Hilary, how does it work with yourselves in the academic year?
So I was just going to pick up on what Eduardo said about sort of after you've sold the book to schools. I think there is an increasing expectation from schools that they are given some kind of training or professional development about how to use your materials in the classroom, especially if it's a new pedagogical approach that they're having to adopt in their schools, and they're expecting the publisher to be providing that increasingly, I would say, definitely, or having something that is additional to the book itself in order to implement something in the classroom. In terms of the year, we operate mainly in the Northern Hemisphere, English-speaking world. I think probably the Australian cycle's similar to yours because the school year also starts in January. But we find sort of the springtime, so January, February, we'd be awareness raising. And then from March and April, we'd be really promoting our new publishing because that's when schools are typically looking for their material for the following academic year, which would start in September. And I think throughout the second half of the year, we're doing more kind of brand building activity, more just general awareness activity ahead of then the following year when that sort of January, February, we've got these new titles or new ranges coming out.
And does that differ between the UK and the US or globally, or
No,
it's quite consistent?
I think it's fairly consistent. I think the difference we find in the US is that cycle is almost a year behind. So you can raise awareness in the spring. They'll look at books the following spring to purchase for the next academic year.
And is that linked to the sort of system?
I think it's because there are so many decision makers in the process, whereas in the UK we see far more of a spring to the autumn start of the year.
So if it's of interest, they can purchase it. Whereas in the US, it's let's raise this, and then it takes.
I was talking to somebody we know in a district in the US recently, and there'd be no fewer than 55 people involved in the decision to buy the books for all their schools. So
explains the time
lots
frame.
of people.
Yeah. Great, thank you. I'd love to know more about your business model and how it's evolved as DK Learning.
So I think we're still very much a traditional print-based publisher. We still see that as our core, and we see the ability for print to delight and to engage. And we really saw the last few years as there was a lot that was being said about the future being digital in education. And I think it proved that the future is very hybrid rather than digital, that there's still a strong place for printed books in schools and in homes, but in schools in particular, and particularly in the younger years. I think where we've not really changed, but I think one of the things we've really honed in on is the series identity in education, being not wanting to publish individual titles, but wanting to actually add to a range, to a series that becomes identifiable, because that makes it a little bit easier for us. If we're just producing a nice new book on owls, that can get very lost. But if it's part of a reading series or if something, and the same with other subjects, so that our approach now is very much to deal with a series identity and then add to that rather than deal with individual titles.
Yeah, quite similar as an agency actually. When we're approached with single titles that want to get into school, we're less likely to take it on than if it's okay, we've got this series and we can actually see what we can do. There's just so much more you can do with it. So
and recently we relaunched our readers, which Laura was involved in helping us promote, but we had a legacy set of readers globally that had done quite well for us, and they were very dated. And what we chose to do is to reignite the series with 75 reissues, new livery, and 50 new titles. And we spent a lot of time reaching that optimal number in terms of what schools were looking for and what they would need, but also for booksellers, taking up that shelf space with something that is strongly branded is really important. Whereas if we just come out with two and gone, this is our new livery, have a look at it, it wouldn't have had that same impact. So I think there's definitely a power in the kind of having a series brand that you can then add to over time.
Yeah, it makes total sense from a shelving point of view and in terms of how people look for what they're. Yeah, exactly. So great, thank you. And what about yourselves? Your business model? How is it evolving? Where are you heading?
Well, on the public market, it's pretty much the traditional model. You operate on actually, let me explain a little bit how it operates. On the public market, the federal government issues, he defines what he wants on its books. Just to have a little bit of information, even the total amount of pages, it's regulated. And publishers write their books, presents to the government. They are evaluated by the Ministry of Education. The books approved on this process are then made available for schools to choose from the list. Money is not important on this. The budgetary part is not important because who chooses and uses the book is not who pays for it. That is the federal government. So actually, it pays pretty much the same. So it makes no difference for the publishers. Have little control on the price for the public market. And so for each subject, teachers are free to choose from, and that's it. On the public market, on the private market, we are having a lot of changes in Brazil. This traditional model still exists, but it's in extinction. We are moving on more towards a book as a service model, where publishers are seen as a partner, as I mentioned, and has contracts with schools to provide their educational needs. So you don't choose my math, my science book. I offer to the school the complete package of educational solutions. And what is included varies school to school with their needs. Only the textbooks plus teacher training. So books are not sold anymore in bookstores. Educational books are barely in extinction in bookstores, because this is a process where you sell directly to schools through a contract, and schools sell them or give them to schools. So we are having this huge movement in Brazil. The last figures I heard, it was like there's already 70% of the market on Brazil on this new model. And it's been interesting for publishers because we had a lot of problems with copyrights, violation, and for instance, on a classroom in the traditional model, 1 out of 3 students would buy a book. So it was unsustainable to continue investing on books. On this process, we have a little bit more control on who has the books. And it's also on the interest of schools that it's a business model for schools as well. They make money selling these content. And we are changing the publishers' relation. Most of publishers that participate on the private market, they barely present themselves only as publishers. It's more an educational provider, because it needs to be interlinked with technology, these kind of things. Unfortunately, people keep in mind, well, books are old school. We need something more sexy for our children. And well, that didn't sound well. Sorry. So we are trying more this kind of full provider of the educational needs. So even big companies are investing a lot on technology and making relations with startups to provide, to brave this frontier on the educational market.
Okay. I was like, are you going for more notes? Or amazing, brilliant. Thank you so much. It's just one more question from me, and then if anyone in the audience has any questions, we'd love to hear from you. So do you have a case study of anything that your team has done or that you've seen that has been really successfully communicated with and marketed to students? Anything that we can gain inspiration from in this room?
Well, in Brazil, we are just passing through a huge regulation change that will overrun all our marketing strategies. On a couple of years, it will be prohibited most of what we do. We won't be able to send the printed samples. We won't be able to have representatives on schools and have meetings with teachers. They want a completely digital interaction.
You won't be able to go into schools and have those conversations anymore.
Not even online meetings. It will Well, there's been a lot of fight with the government regarding this issue, but it's already a law, and in 2 years, by 2026, we will have a completely different situation in Brazil. And for the last 7 years, publishers were already putting a lot of energy on the digital platforms. That's why I mentioned so much on my previous answers. And we've been quite happy on the results. On this last campaign of this year, we could get around 400,000 monthly access on our platforms. We had on the late period on the selection process, even 90,000 access each day. In Brazil, we have a saying, we let everything for the last moment, and that's true. Teachers select choose their books really on the last moment. So this, there's a lot to be done yet, but we are starting to manage how to get them, how to start making a digital interaction with schools. It's not yet mandatory. We still have other strategies, but fortunately, we're starting now to get things online. But I would like to share you actually well, not a bad experience, something that we still need to work on, because, well, I always rather talk about not the good cases, but the bad one, because I think we can learn even more. Yeah. We started some marketing strategies using educational influencers from YouTube. But in Brazil, our researchers points that the main social media used for educational reasons for teacher is YouTube or Facebook. And we hire some educational influencers to make some reviews of our books. But to be honest, this year we didn't pay it off. Like we had like 100, 200 views on these reviews. It's not that we are abandoning this strategy, but of course I think we need to review it. Now I've been watching some panels here at Frankfurt, and we just had some meetings now. The new media, TikTok, for instance, is how deeply connected and impacts the old media, the books. And we still think we can, on educational books, have this opportunity as well. But we still need to work better on how can it be used. So far we don't have a good sample for that. Perhaps in a couple of years I can bring it back as what we learned. But it's something we are working on.
I guess it depends on the influencer, really, doesn't it?
For sure.
And what they create and what their audience is, and how right that influencer is for your books, for their audience. And if any of those things aren't connected,
True.
then then you're gonna. Oh well, we look forward to seeing the next stage of that take off. Thank you. What about yourselves? A case study of what's gone well?
So we had I think possibly the opposite experience. So we'd been discovering that particularly email marketing is just not getting the sort of traction that we used to see. Really bad open rates, engagement, click-through rates, even through really highly regarded lists and agencies. And when we relaunched our readers, we did a campaign of really targeted print. So we worked with an organization called Metametrics, who we were doing Lexile levels for these readers. So we worked with them to target their list in terms of the schools that were already using their system. But we also did a really successful campaign with influencers, both in the US and the UK, mainly on Instagram. And we did see really, really good engagement, and we saw the brand get out there really quickly, to the point that people were phoning in and saying things to the salespeople like, I saw this, sassy grade 1 teacher was showing your books, and I want to get some for my classroom. So it worked out really well for us. And I think a lot of the influencers had really good followings, and that really helped and from a brand point of view, it really, I think, took us forward very quickly in terms of that series.
Do you remember how many influencers were in that campaign?
I think there were 8.
Okay, so not a lot,
No,
really.
I think it was like 5 US, 3 UK. It wasn't a huge number, but they were quite carefully selected in terms of the grades they taught, the type of following they had. Also, even though it doesn't seem like something you'd want to consider, but their personal geographical location, because that made a difference, so that we're covering different parts of the country, making sure that we kind of, they had somebody with an accent that was from that part of the country and somebody else from another part. So yes, it wasn't a massive number, and it wasn't particularly costly either. So that was the other thing, is if I compare that to what an email campaign would have cost us, it was a tenth of that, but I think 10 times more impactful.
Well, a tenth of it
Yeah.
from what it would have. So
Can I make Hilary a question?
Yeah.
When you use these influencers regarding the content, what was like the main strategy? You used more their deep knowledge on education, or a more traditional social media presentation?
So because we're focused far more in the earlier grades, so more elementary, we chose teachers who would take the books and put them into the reading corner of their classroom. So they were little active videos of, I've got these great new books, my kids are going to love them. It wasn't hard education content. They did mention the fact that, they fitted in with Lexile levels and things like that, so that they were clear about what the education framework was, but it was far more kind of, I would say, traditional social media, fun, light, that sort of stuff. We have worked with a YouTuber as well in the English language teaching market, and that has been more harder education content, and that's also got a really high level of engagement for us.
I think you can get high level of engagement at higher levels, but it lends itself particularly well at lower levels. One, because of the just visual nature of it at a low level. And second of all, in terms of the influencers, that you have a wider variety and reach and options, because at a higher level, sometimes they don't want to be working in that sphere where their students are likely to see them. Whereas at the lower level, their students aren't going to be there, and they just feel a bit more liberated about what they can do on their platform. So if it's specifically teacher influencers that we're talking about. So, yeah. Great. Okay. Any questions from the audience?
I'm from the Philippines. I'm Dominador Buhain, and I just would like to inquire whether, especially in Brazil, whether, the educational publishers can sell directly to the public schools and private school. And my second question is that, is there no difficulty, making collection on the books that are being delivered? And the third question is, what is the arrangement on the delivery of books to the schools?
I have a short memory. I will ask Laura to
I was gonna
remind me
say.
the questions.
Quite a few questions there.
In Brazil, we don't sell directly on the public market. We don't sell directly to schools. Publishers sell to the federal government. The federal government delivers books to the schools. They are responsible for distributing, but our contract is with the federal government, not directly with the schools, although the schools make the option, the selection of the material, their educational material. The second was, how was the agreement, how was distribution regarding for selling directly to schools, if I'm not mistaken, for the private market?
Maybe my next question is there difficulty collecting money from either the public school or the private school?
Well, the public schools, no, it's the government has been paying their bills daily, so it hasn't been a problem. Private schools, well, there are a lot of different schools. We had a lot of issue during the pandemics because many private schools in Brazil were struggled because we had around, I believe, 5–10% students from private schools moved to public schools, especially kindergarten. A lot of schools were closed. So publishers try to renegotiate their relations, their contracts with schools. But it's operating on a healthy basis so far. Did I answer it?
I think so. I think so. Lovely. Thank you. Okay, Lewis? Do you need a mic or is there a mic? Give me one. Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Lewis Bronze. I'm from a company called Sensations English. Can I ask you both, as regards your use of influencers, do you find a commission model or a fee? Are they affiliates or do they get paid a fee? Which do you find works best for you?
We've got a mix. We've got a mix of teacher influencers who delightfully will just promote because they like the product, and that's very genuine and authentic, and we like that, and we send them loads of free books. We have affiliates as well, so those are influencers who typically can pass on a discount code. So if people buy through their code, they get a little commission. And we also do paid sponsorship. So we do a little bit of both. And I think it's too early for us to really know which is the most effective. I think we've kind of put our pokers in all three fires, waiting to see what's going to pan out best. I think the authentic nature of a teacher who just genuinely loves what you've done can't be replicated. It's really hard. And for that, it's just time. It's finding them. It's finding the people on social media who, unbeknownst to you, have actually gone, I love what these guys are doing. They're doing amazing stuff. Every teacher should have this. And actually amplifying what they're doing and using it.
One quick supplementary. Do you find one platform is better than another?
I'm going to say something which I think could be deemed as potentially slightly ageist. I think it depends on where the teachers are in their career. I think Facebook is probably of my generation, and Instagram and TikTok are for younger teachers coming into the profession. So I think it depends on, I don't think it's the platform itself. I think it's the teacher's age more than anything else.
Hi, we are co-publishers for an independent kids book publisher, and my question is related to the social media marketing. Do you find that those campaigns lead to more brand awareness and then you have to wait for those cycles, or do they also lead to direct book sales to teachers and librarians?
Well, we see more as a brand awareness. Although we try to use it as well for promoting our books, we know it's too light to choose a book only on a picture or something like this. So it's smart to get in. Oh, I like what they have, brand awareness, our platforms, so they're connected. We want to build a connection not only through social media, but to move this to platforms where we deliver them actual content, content that they can use directly on their schools. For instance, we have they can build their exams, their tests for the children, their students, but they can receive some projects to implement on schools that we give for free. Now we want them on our network. So so we're mainly, we use our social media. Mostly its purpose is to promote our brand and our platform.
And I imagine that opens up doors for your sales reps when they're making visits, that whole, so it all interlinks. Great.
We have coupled social media campaigns with click-throughs, and it's depended. I think we're not quite sure on what yet, but it's been relatively successful sometimes and less successful other times. So I think it is more about brand awareness. If it coincides with something else, then we do see much better traction. So if the social media campaign coincides with a reading conference or even a print-based or advertising campaign we've decided to do, that seems to be better.
Thanks.
Laura, if I may add up, Hilary mentioned about mailing strategies. We also were giving up about mailing, but this year we had just a surprise. We got I forgot the term. The opening of the mailing, we got around 10% rate, which was overwhelming because it's really a high rate when you consider the basis of how many teachers are. So we were thinking, I believe this is outdated. Will be our last year, and just this happened. It's not that we changed something, perhaps just something of this year, but we got some figures that were surprising. So we're still okay. Perhaps we are not yet to give up on mailing. There's still some space. Last week, if it is,
but you're not sure why that shift happened.
We just finished our selection. Modern Brazil, so we have a lot of learning now to process all the data and understand what went well. We have the results. We were the #1 publishing house in Brazil, but now we need to do our homework and where we got it right, where we got it wrong. Yeah. But this data we already have that. We got they're reading our emails. That's amazing.
long live email marketing. Is this the last one? Yeah.
All right. My name is Otieno from Kenya. I'm an author and independent publisher as well. And my question is, do you receive resistance from, as you say, you sell through the federal government? So for books, and I'm assuming some books are not academic books, right? That are not in the curriculum that you sell to them. So what kind of resistance do you get? Because we get the same, especially in public schools. Private schools, I guess, are a bit more flexible, but public schools, which happen to be the majority of the schools, it's very difficult to really sell, books that are not regulated by the government themselves. Yeah.
You mean resistance on a broad fashion?
Yes.
We just had a curious experience in Brazil. In the biggest and richest state, São Paulo was getting out of the federal program. They wanted to go to a self-publishing model, and we got a tremendous support of the society. And one of the main points is the troubling in state publishing regarding the freedom to publish. Especially when states start publishing on educational matters, that's troubling. They can indoctrinate students and so on. Not that this was the case in São Paulo, but it turned on the yellow light. Okay, that's troubling. We still have, but we were able to overrule this position. They're back to the program, but we are still having some issues both on the federal level when they assess our books, as well as on the local level, schools banning no, we can't use this. On the federal level, I believe we are going to through. They have a view. The students are to put the students on a bubble. Like they expect, especially not for the academical books, literature books. Well, you can't show this to a student, despite they will see on TV, internet, and so on. Even internet, actually, they want to regulate so deeply. Books can't have hyperlinks, nothing. They need to be a closed system because, no, the internet is dangerous. It is, well, we can be, but it's part of our lives. And part of the school's mission should be teaching exactly how to use internet and not pretending it doesn't exist. So just yesterday we got a result from the assessment of the government for literature books, and this appeared a lot. This kind of bubbling the students on a fashion that students can't be presented to many issues. We've been, Laura, please control my time. This topic, I can start talking. Okay. I can continue later.
I'll see you on the side.
Cool. Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Thank you so much, Hilary and Eduardo. That was fascinating. Really generous of you to join us this afternoon. And everyone, enjoy the rest of your fair. So,
Thank you.